We'll probably go into the
Court?
lectern for the.
Where?
Sorry. Were you able to get the president of the PowerPoint? Yes. Okay, perfect. There's one.
She goes, oh, and this one.
There is
We heard, are we rolling? Sounds like it.
very animated.
Do we have Dan?
The next is like lists.
Okay.
So I'll let you know.
We have
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. And are we rolling on the,
You just push a button or push the down button. Either way works.
presentation mode.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
I can try to do it from.
ready to go?
Yes.
All right, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Let's start with the roll call.
Boley,
Here.
Bomer. Here. Derwingson,
Here.
Bush,
Here.
Layton,
Here.
Walsh. Here. Riggs. Here. Almquist,
Here.
Hodges here, Sherwood absent, City Attorney.
This is Michael with City Attorney's Office.
Thanks, Michael. A quorum is present.
Okay, great. We have minutes to approve from the January 13th, 2026 meeting.
I move to approve those minutes.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from January 13th, 2026. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Okay. Unscheduled citizens, is there anybody here to speak to something that is not on the agenda this evening? Okay. Any amendments to the agenda? Nope. Okay, so we'll go ahead and open the first public hearing, which is the recommendation on proposed R2 zoning for the 5H LLC annexation.
Great, thank you. Good evening, planning commissioners. So this evening, we are reviewing something that should be pretty familiar to you all, and it is the approximately 15-acre property on the west side of town that was annexed into the city limits this past summer. Located immediately west of the golf course property between a couple of neighborhoods that are north and south of the property itself. You could go to the next slide. So this property was, as I mentioned, annexed in via ordinance 2025-14 that included language in regards to a imposed cap of 96 units on the property. Next, yep. This ordinance is effective and indeed final. So in other words, this property is annexed. It is part of the city. Next. Back at the same time, simultaneous to that annexation request, the applicants, 5H LLC, represented by Dustin and Britt Hughes and Walt Harder, they requested R3 zoning. That request was initially approved. It was recommended by this body for approval and then approved by City Council via Ordinance 2025-15. Next. Along with that, an annexation agreement was put together that was eventually approved by Council via Resolution 2025-41, which allowed, it further reduced and further restricted the overall number of units that could be built on the 15 acres, and additional provisions that were primarily just aligning the any eventual project with the concept that they had proposed. Next. That R3 zoning, there was a citizen petition that collected a sufficient number of signatures, and that gave council an opportunity to either repeal the R3 zoning that had been applied via ordinance 2025-14, or to send it to the voters as a referendum as part of a special election. Council opted to go ahead and repeal it at that time in September, which actually also nullified, not only did it nullify the zoning, but it nullified the annexation agreement, the earlier agreement, 2025-41. So that is no longer in effect. So it goes back to the 96 unit cap at this point. Next. And to remain in conformance with statutory law to apply zoning once annexation has been made effective, the applicant was required to come in with an application for new zoning, which they did, asking for R2 medium density residential, which was submitted back in December. Next. So we have 4 different review standards when considering a zoning request. And that, I should just stipulate, this is the entirety of what is in front of us tonight is the base zoning that would be applied to the property now that the property has been annexed into the city. So the first review standard per our land use code is in regards to consistency with the comprehensive plan and the future land use map that is included as an addendum to the comprehensive plan. Next. The second one is consistency with the purpose of the zone district, which we'll get into here shortly. Next. Compatibility with surrounding zone districts and uses. And lastly, in regards to, next, any changed conditions, which in this particular case, because it is an initial zoning as opposed to a zoning amendment, the zoning is required per our code and per state statute to be applied following annexation. So getting into that first review standard, in regards to consistency with the comprehensive plan and the future land use map. This here is the adopted future land use map that was adopted back in 2023. The area in question, the property in question, is outlined in red and up in the upper left-hand corner there. What that shows is that the property includes a striping of yellow or orange in that vicinity, which applies to either variable residential density or higher density residential, which most align with R2 and R3 zoning. So in other words, the areas out here are anticipated through the future land use map to go to either R2 or R3. Next. Some of the relevant comprehensive plan policies that were included in the staff report, just briefly within the land use section, discussing new development complementing neighborhoods mass and scale, encouraging the use of the property for maximum density to make the best use of available infrastructure and services. In other words, you don't want to have extend water and wastewater lines out just for a few homes. It's incredibly expensive upon the community. The next being focusing new development within the municipal services area, which this property is, to ensure adequate provision of services and to limit sprawl around the city. And then lastly, that the property be evaluated for the expectation of urban density levels, pedestrian and bicycle corridors, water availability, and promotion of innovative energy efficient design. Next slide. So now on to the second review standard, which is the purpose of the zone district. As it states in our land use code, the medium density residential R2 district is intended to provide for medium density residential neighborhoods with a variety of single family dwelling forms and smaller multifamily residences. Of course, there is no development proposal at this time. It is simply for the base zoning. However, I do believe the applicants will be discussing here a little bit of what their intentions are for the property. Next slide. So again, the request is for R2, and this particular slide shows the relation of the property to the surrounding neighborhoods. Of course, We just went through a zoning map, comprehensive rezone, and some of these properties were actually zoned R3 in the past, and they are now, some of them are now R2. There are a couple of remainder pieces that are in the orange, so yellow is R2, orange is R3. To the south are some mixed-use neighborhood and additional R3. Immediately to the east is the open space and parks on which the golf course resides, and further to the north are additional R2 with a little bit of R3 also a bit to the northeast. So settled there right between those R2 neighborhoods. Next slide. Some photos, just taken from Google Street View of a few of the different developments. Upper left includes some homes from Crestone Mesa. The upper right are some homes and condos in, my goodness, just had a... Cottonwood, thank you, Cottonwood Circle. Bottom left is the portion of West End subdivision, southwest of the site, and then I believe that's Cochetopa Estates in the bottom right. This is a slide that was shown before. You've probably seen this. It kind of just goes to show the relative densities of those surrounding neighborhoods. So Crestone Mesa, for instance, currently includes 57 units or developable lots on 10.6 acres. Mesa Ridge in the top far north there is up to 17 units on 2.2 acres. Cottonwood Green, 49 units on 13.1 acres. Then coming down, that's Mesa Circle, 61 units on 16.4 acres. And then Cochetopa Estates, 42 units on 9.6 acres. And then West End subdivision to the southwest there, up to 43 units on 5.2 acres. So just to give you a sense of the amount of homes that are out in that area, the relative densities, all that fall within the R2 zoning allotments. Next slide. So going through the different review standards, staff has looked at the language of the comprehensive plan and what's on the future land use map, and determined that the application does appear to meet that. If you want to go ahead and click one, consistency with purpose of the zone district. From what we understand, the plan is for a residential neighborhood that would include a variety of single-family dwellings and potentially some small-scale multifamily. You can go ahead and click that. The compatibility with surrounding zone districts and uses. It's pretty evident that everything around it is primarily zoned within the city, at least is zoned R2, north and south, and there's some additional zoning as you get a little bit further away, including R3. And then, obviously, as mentioned before, zoning of this annex property is required by code and state statute. So we have provided a recommendation on the next slide, and I am happy to take any questions that you might have at this point.
Before I open it for questions, just a small point of order that we do have 5 commissioners, 1's online, and 2 alternates, and everyone will have, with that 7, so everybody will vote this evening.
Okay, thank you
Okay,
very
with
much.
that said, questions for staff?
Can you remind me, Bill, like this is the old code, but things get converted to the new code? Can you just remind me, like the R2 becomes
Sure.
something else, or it
Yeah.
stays R2 forever?
So R2 stayed as R2. There was a slight name difference, actually with R2 it didn't, because we kept that the same. It was R3 that changed its name, and R1 a little bit. So this did come in under the old code. And all of the procedures. In this particular case with a new zoning, there's actually, there are no differences, no substantial differences when it comes to the procedures for zoning under the new code versus the old code. So, and this would be, though at the time, was the old code, if it were to be zoned, it would be automatically considered the same R2 as anything else around it, right? So they would all have the same dimensional standards, development standards, et cetera.
Any other questions for staff at this moment? I'm sure we might, once we just start discussion, but
Yep.
thank you. Is the applicant here?
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Bill Hussey. I'm with Shrednar LLC. I'm the applicant's civil engineer and land planner. Pelona is still working with us on the land plan. As you'll see, they're not here tonight, but still on the team. I don't want to repeat too much of what Bill said, but I just want to start with history again. 2020, this is a county comp plan showing that this parcel is mixed use, or mixed residential, it's called on there. They could have called it suburban, which they did not. They could have called it rural, which they did not. So kind of implied a slightly higher level of density here. It also shows us in the MSA, and we've gotten some comments in letters about city services, and that MSA is from 2010. So 15 or 16 years ago, we've been studying this as a parcel that needs city services for the last 15 years. So that should not be a concern for us in zoning it, the zone that we've been planning at least 5 years for it to be this density. Next slide, please. I am not gonna repeat what Bill said about this one. Next slide, please. This is from the future land use map narrative that happened in 2023. And these are just some examples that the city showed as examples of what low intensity residential could look like. It's primarily single family, it's large lot, maybe a few duplexes. And if you scroll down a little bit towards the bottom bullet point, it says that this is specifically not intended to be applied to new areas. So this would correspond to an R1, and we would like to see this, the future land use map followed and not applied to new areas. There were also a couple comments, if you go to the next slide, please, that the surrounding neighborhoods, they're zoned R2, but a lot of folks say they feel more like R1. And that's an opinion, and I can't argue with your opinion, but what I can show you is that this neighborhood is gonna look and feel much the same. If you go to the next slide, the surrounding neighborhoods, the reason that they need to be zoned R2 to work is not to cram more units in. They're not super dense. And what we're proposing isn't super dense either. What we need are the good setbacks. 25 feet in R1 is just a long way, and none of the surrounding subdivisions have 25-foot front setbacks. They have lots that are narrower than 50 feet for a detached home. So these are some of the reasons why we're asking for R2. And we wouldn't want to see R1 zoned on this property. Next slide, I believe, is our plan. And this has changed a lot, and we've talked with the neighbors and talked with Planning Commission, City Council about this. And it's changed a lot from May of 2025. We had 96 units and a lot more duplexes and townhomes and multifamily. And this concept is only a week or two old, and it is exclusively single family except for the 3 fourplexes on the west side. And we followed, the neighbor's advice, essentially did the same thing as Cottonwood Green, put our multifamily far away from any existing houses. So we're really, we feel that we're doing what we can to address concerns. The street network got reconfigured so that there's not as direct of a connection through Crestone, Mesa, or Cottonwood Green, which was a concern coming in. Bill, the density numbers that Bill talked about, the 2 that I caught and wrote down were Crestone Mesa, 57 units on 10.6 acres, is 5.4 units per acre. This plan shows 66 units on 15 acres, which is 4.4 units per acre. So we're significantly less than Crestone Mesa. Cottonwood Green is 49 units on 13.1 acres, is 3.7 units per acre. So we fall nicely right in the middle of those two, actually, closer to the low end of Cottonwood Green than we do to Crestone Mesa. So we would love to get to work on building this plan in R2, providing a great neighborhood. And I would just ask that you continue to share your concerns with us, that we want to do what we can to not go through another round of petition. And the last thing we want to see is the city have to pay.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Please just
Not allowed to
address
talk about-
us. would
Sorry
you?
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're willing to do what we can to stay out of another referendum / special election situation within reason. And if any density calculations that we did in the past or exhibits of what those might look like, if I presented those as a threat, I apologize for that. It wasn't my intention, but the reality of these things is that if we can't get a project done and the parcel gets sold, I have no idea what happens next. And on that cheery note, that's all I have. I'll thank you for your time. I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Bill?
No, sir.
All right,
Thank
stay
you.
close. All right. With no further questions, we will move on to public input. I will ask that you please keep it to 3 minutes. We're not going to be super tough on that, I think. I only have 7 people signed up, but we'll try to keep you to 3. William Borms?
Good evening. I am William Bormas from Crestone Mesa, 143 Crestone Mesa Drive. I am speaking at this Planning Commission meeting as a concerned resident of the city of Salida. I agree there's a need for the conscientious development of more housing in Salida. I object to the 5H LLC R2 zoning application for the annex property known as 5H. From reading the code, I believe this rezoning request shows the 5H proposal is incompatible with the surrounding neighborhoods and fails to meet key approval criteria required by our newly adopted code. The communities immediately surrounding the property were zoned R2 under the prior code, but now function and appear more like the updated R1 low-density residential district under the 2025 LUC revisions. The proposed R2 zoning under the newly adopted code for the 5H development allows for a harsh mismatch in scale, character, and intensity compared to the existing low-density, large lot residential neighborhoods surrounding the proposed 5H development. Approving R2 under the new code would disrupt the surrounding neighborhood's harmony, deteriorate the environment of surrounding communities, and damage those communities' character and appeal. The developer wants to defer studies related to the proposed subdivision's effects on our city's current limited resources, such as traffic, emergency services, water and sewer, floodplain, stormwater mitigation, etc., that the proposed increased density would exacerbate. My understanding, LUC criteria require the developer to demonstrate that no deficiencies exist in public facilities. This application's deferral of the needed studies clearly does not meet this requirement. The developer's team spoke publicly at hearings in 2025, issuing comments that were perceived as threats of them doing worse outcomes on the city of Salida, citizens of Salida, if we didn't go along with their proposal. I ask that you also remember in September 2025, a petition for referendum gathered in less than 2 weeks signatures from nearly 10% of Salida's voters, all against the previous zoning proposal from the 5H group. As a homeowner and Salida resident, I respectfully request that our city's planning commission and city council deny the current 5H application. If rezoning is considered, I believe, as per my reading of the new LOC, it should be limited to R1 for similar low density standards. I also believe the developer should be required to first do the key approval criteria studies needed for the proposed development. I thank every member of this planning commission for your dedication, your hard work on our behalf, the citizens of Salida. I recognize that you too support Salida's citizens' vision of sustainable and harmonious growth and appreciation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Denise Wentz.
I am Denise Wentz, and I'm here to object to the R2 zoning for the 5H LLC property. With the newly adopted LUC, R2 zoning allows for denser development with apartment buildings, which are inconsistent and incompatible with the surrounding well-established neighborhoods consisting of primarily single-family homes. We continue to have the same concerns from last summer regarding the resulting increase in traffic on Cottonwood Circle, Cresto Mesa Drive, and County Road 141. No traffic impact study was performed. The July 22, 2025 Annex Impact Report required, quote unquote, the appropriate traffic impact analysis to be prepared, quote unquote, submitted to the city for review, and to be, quote unquote, in accordance with the city and the MUTCD standards, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. A development of this size should not be allowed without a traffic analysis of the standards set by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. This may seem a little harsh, but the developer, Walt Harder, has eroded the trust of the community. Through the first referendum process, I am shocked by the number of residents that have strong negative feelings towards him. He has demonstrated that he does not deliver what he promises. The Angel View development is an excellent example. He sold the project as townhomes, but he actually built condominiums. The name Angel View Townhomes in itself is a deception. He has 3 uncompleted development projects in Chaffee County. Angel View, which has been under construction since 2017, Confluence Park, and Timber Creek Ranch. And he is actively trying to purchase the Friends Ranch. Will he leave the 5H project unfinished as well? He needs to finish what he has started. The Planning Commission has the responsibility to do what is right by the Salida residents. We need responsible development that is consistent and compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods. And we need to hold developers to a high standard. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Is it Ken? Ken Wool?
Ken Wool, citizen of Mesa Court. I'm here because I've spent my life working multiple jobs to afford my home, like many people here who toil and save for decades. To suggest that our properties, our homes, our lives are secondary to a developer's profit and to housing targets that are based on pre-pandemic era metrics is an insult. Our homes are not just housing units, they are life savings. Equally insulting is this commission's past suggestion that dense, soulless development will not harm property values. It assumes Salida's character is indestructible, that design, scale, and character do not matter, and that existing homeowners should simply absorb the downside risk in service of abstract housing goals. These assumptions are wrong. Markets respond to character, privacy, and livability, especially in a place like Salida. Development that prioritizes density alone does not preserve value. It erodes character, depresses surrounding property values, and destroys public trust. We will not see our life savings gutted by a project the citizens overwhelmingly opposed already. And I want to be very clear about what is happening now. Calling this R2 is being offered as if it is a compromise, a step down from what the community rejected. It is not a step down. R2 is R3 repackaged. The goalposts have been moved. If you're not paying attention, R2 sounds like moderation. In practice, it's a wolf's in sheep's clothing. Functionally, R3 in density and impact drop next to neighborhoods built under prior R2 rules. The land use code still requires compatibility with the character of the existing neighborhoods. But with this developer, the results speak for itself. Look at Angel View, boxy, repetitive buildings with no relationship to their surroundings, development that could exist anywhere and therefore belongs nowhere. Just look at BV, at the variance, how pretty those homes, how pretty that development is by the river. Finally, traffic. A traffic study may not be required by code, but the impacts here are obvious. Residents raised traffic concerns last September. This commission, city council had the discretion and the responsibility to demand real analysis, and this has not happened. The commission previously voted unanimously for a project so out of step with the community that faced with a referendum, the city council reversed course rather than proceed to a public vote. I would urge you not to repeat your mistake. Demand real analysis, apply the compatibility standards that still exist in the code. Stop allowing Salida's character to be sacrificed for maximum density and architectural rejects. The citizens have already made themselves clear. Please don't make us do it again. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Carolyn Kaczynski?
Good evening, everyone. Carolyn Kaczynski, 403 Cottonwood Circle. Yes, I am also very concerned and agree with most of what was said here, that this development negatively impacts what I have deliberately chosen from an emotional and financial perspective for my quality of life. My biggest concern if this proceeds is with the traffic, road access, thoroughway, but we won't get into that yet. But now, through this whole process, I am being sensitized, and I started looking at the bigger picture and asked myself, do we have a case to argue this? I believe so. I think it's very troubling. I believe that Salida and perhaps Chaffee County together is overcompensating and it's going to blow up, especially as it's related to the infrastructure. Are we prepared for all of this? Reputable studies from economic development institutions, such as the Colorado Small Business Development Center, I went to a seminar there, they demonstrated that consistent patterns in which jurisdictions respond to housing challenges with excessive or poorly calibrated interventions. These overcorrections have been shown to produce measurable long-term harm, undermining overall economic viability, fiscal stability, and the jurisdiction's attractiveness to residents, employers, and investors. It's been shown over and over. So with that in mind, I asked myself, and I keep asking others, and I don't get any answers, where are we in regard to the Chaffee County housing study that said we need 1,700 units by 2025? Have Poncha Springs and Buena Vista provided their recent numbers with everything in their pipeline? And will the municipalities cooperate and share? Will the 5H development property exceed that goal? Where are we and what is really our goal as compared to where we want to be in 5 to 7 years? Are we meeting our low-income housing goal needs as well through this process? And let's look at the current day situation. We are in a pretty severe drop in the housing market. What is this additional development going to do to the whole Salida wealth? I strongly urge that the Planning Commission, in concert with the City of Salida, not approve this development until we go through a better due diligence, studies are performed and communicated in light of the current approved massive developments already going on. Thank you for listening. I sincerely hope that my objections and the objections of my many concerned neighbors will be taken into account.
Thank you. Allison Groom.
Yeah, Allison Groom. My address is 13 Silver Spruce Drive. I'm in Cochetopa Estates, and thank you for all the work that you're doing on the committee. I agree with my fellow neighbors' concerns about the development. My main concern is the impact on traffic, as well as the city's resources and ability to offer services to this development and not take away from existing neighborhoods. And that includes water, sewage capacity, drainage, gas, electric usage, and emergency access. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mike Lloyd. Sure.
Okay, I want to start with a couple of questions. That map you have up there, that plat.
Point of order, sir. Could you speak into the microphone
I'm
so we can
sorry.
all hear you?
That plat that
Thank
you have up there, can everybody hear me now?
Yes,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay, when did that come out and how do you distribute that to people who have a concern about this? How do you assure that people know the latest information? Because I happen to see it because I happen to know somebody within the subdivision that got a copy. And as far as I know, nobody else saw it. Is there some method you use to distribute these?
What I'll have you do, sir, is just kind of finish your comments, and then we're writing down the question, and then we'll attempt to answer it for you.
Okay. This is the second time I've commented on this process, and the first time was the debacle where it resulted in a referendum. I hope we can all avoid that. The land use code that was adopted in December specifically talks about density and access. That would be my primary concern. And one question or one statement I'd like to make about access. I always hear how the city wants to have through access for emergency vehicles and whatever. And I certainly agree with that, but I think there's something else that needs to be considered. You can allow police and fire and ambulance access without general public access, and I know that's been done in other places, and I can name them for you. I live in Cottonwood Greens, and I really don't want that kind of traffic that's going to result when there's a bypass essentially from Crestone Avenue to the airport road. The people who live in Buena Vista need to get to Walmart, and this is a shorter way. I really don't want that kind of traffic through the neighborhood. And I think if you could address that, you'd have a little bit better acceptance in the community. And I keep hearing about affordable housing. Well, there's two things I'd want to say about that. I remember when we approved, or you approved, or this commission approved Crestone Mesa, they were talking about affordable housing. They talked about housing that are about $240,000. I don't know how long ago that was, 7 or 8 years ago. Try and buy any of those houses now and it'd cost you 3 times that. And when you're talking about affordable housing, does it really go to the people who need it in the community, or does it go to somebody on the front range that wants a second home or a vacation home? And believe me, that's happening. Talk to your realtor if you don't believe that. The land use code that was adopted in December has some specific things about density and access. I used to work for a federal agency, and I know the biggest thing that people used to hit us with was follow your own rules. You need to follow those rules about density and access. I guess the biggest thing I'd say is
do what works, involve the community a lot more than you ever have, or you're going to end up with more referendums, more legal problems. Do what works. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Where do I leave the comments?
Bill.
Yeah. There's double page. Thank you.
Okay. All right, and finally, David Eckstein.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Affordable housing does not and should not be cheaply built, but affordable boxes. Lacking any sense of pride, craftsmanship, and design, affordability should not mean cramming any abode into a very square, in every space, a square inch of Salida space. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that we're squeezing things in. If you look at the downtown area, it's houses in back of houses in back of houses. Our town was built to be a comfortable, open space living area. It's turning out to be a lot different than it was originally conceived. As a council, you represent the people and not the developers. You owe it to us to find out a more creative solutions to the housing problem. I know we have a problem here, but it shouldn't be on the backs of the existing population. I'm concerned that Salida, I'm concerned that Salida will lose its heart and soul. Maybe it should swap the Salida heart for a $. Advertising Salida as the affordable city. In any case, I'm sure you don't want to be remembered as for turning Salida into a overcrowded has-been of a city. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I believe we do have some online folks. Give me
Okay.
1 second to figure that out. It looks like Ryan Delaney has raised their hand.
Ryan,
Hi, can you guys hear me?
we can.
Great. Ryan Delaney, 106 Crestone Mesa. Live in Crestone Mesa neighborhood. 2 comments. The first is continue to be challenged by this process where there are materials presented at the meeting that were not posted, at least as far as a few days ago online. This new site plan is helpful, but it would have been more helpful to the public if it was available sooner. My first question echoes, or my first comment, I guess, echoes some of the thoughts about access previously. Without having done the traffic studies, it's really impossible to tell what the impact is going to be on surrounding neighborhoods. So I still don't understand how we can approve zoning, which assumes a certain amount of density, which doesn't take that into account. Recognizing that concern at this point falls on pretty deaf ears, but wanted to restate that that's a challenge for me as a resident. The second question is, we have a demonstrated issue in our neighborhood of city services being stretched. We have a park in our neighborhood that was part of the development process. That park's grass is completely dead. and overtures to try and work with the city to figure out that issue have also fallen on deaf ears. So I see here more development, another big park, and I see a bunch of people driving past our park that isn't currently being maintained. So that just sort of strikes me as something that the council ought to think about. Right now, like I said, we have a park that's falling into disrepair. It's got dead grass. It's got a playground that's poorly maintained. We're talking about adding load to that system without even addressing the maintenance for the existing facilities that the city owns. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Appreciate everyone's time on the commission. I know it's a volunteer position and it's largely thankless, so thank you all very much.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
That's it.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the public input portion. I think we probably could.
Bill, I was,
We'll go ahead and move into discussion, but I think we would start discussion with, and I think part of our discussion will be questions for Bill on some of the questions that came up by from the public. Is that what you?
yeah, I just, you know, we've heard a lot from the public about this development, and I do want to remind everybody that our meeting tonight, we're not council, we're the commission. The council will make the ultimate decision. We only make a recommendation to council. We are here to review the base zoning only. We are bound by the code. It is not a subjective decision on our part. We simply have that one task tonight. So I remember the first meeting, Greg, you weren't present for that, but we talked about the traffic study. And it wasn't part of the purview at the time, if I'm not mistaken, Bill Almquist?
Yeah, that is
We
correct.
discussed that, we brought it up, we talked about it, we suggested it would be a good thing, but it wasn't part of our purview. So, you know, I think these things need to be taken one step at a time. What I was going to suggest was perhaps the applicant might want to respond to some of the things, for example, the map and, you know, or maybe you do, Bill, because we have, you know, there's a lot of questions here, but, you know, apartment buildings, traffic impact, Walt's reputation, those things are not on our menu tonight. We can't do anything about those things here. So that, you know, I just want to make that clear to the audience that we are listening to you and we do understand your concerns, but we have a very limited field of vision on this because of the code and because we are required to zone this property within 90 days of annexation. And that is our task tonight. So that's really what I wanted to say. I don't know if anybody else had any other comments.
Well, I think one of the questions that came up was the availability of this plan. And this is the first we've seen this as well.
We haven't seen it either.
We are not approving this plan this evening.
Right.
We are just talking about the zoning. So, yeah, like Francie said.
So I have one other comment, Mr. Chair, if I might. So, Bill, we have no development plan yet. When the applicant provides a solid development plan that they would like to present, that will come before us.
That is correct, yep.
And at that point, we can talk about some of these other things. Is that correct?
That is correct. This
Okay.
concept in
This is a
front of you
concept of a plan.
was simply provided by the applicant as a courtesy,
Sure.
a heads up to folks that this is what they're thinking about.
Sure, and I think that the applicant has made an attempt at least to factor in some of the complaints that have been received. But regardless of whether people think that that's the case or that's enough or whatever, this is not a development plan. This is a zoning application, pure and simple. So when when zoning is approved by council, whenever that is, the applicant will then be free to provide a solid development plan that will be presented to us and to council. So, you know, we all need to remember that there are steps in this process that we have to follow, and we are listening, but tonight is about the base zoning. Thank you.
And Planning Commissioner Bush has their hand raised as well.
Oh, I just took down my hand. I think I was just going to say what I think everyone else is saying. We don't have the option not to zone something. It is required, right?
Correct.
I think that question's to you, Bill.
Yes. This property does need to have zoning placed on it, so you certainly can suggest a different zoning as part of your recommendation this evening, but we will need to bring something forth to council as a recommendation.
Thank you.
And if I might, just kind of piggybacking a little bit off of what Francie had to say, just to clarify, there is no development proposal at this time. This is simply for the zoning. The concept plan, I had spoken with the applicants prior. They said they would like to show this concept again as a heads up to the community and to this planning commission that this is what they're thinking about bringing forth at a later date. To Francie's point, subdivision, which this would be a major subdivision. There's discussion of a possible planned development where they would ask for certain deviations, say to certain dimensional standards. Any of that would come back before this board as part of a public hearing, and then it would go on and receive a recommendation from this board, and then it would go on to City Council as part of a final decision that they would make, in which there would be an additional public hearing. It is very typical of properties to annex into a city and then ask for zoning without any development proposals coming forward. So that is nothing new. We do also sometimes see annexations that come with specific development proposals all at the same time, but that's certainly not the norm. To the point of a traffic impact analysis, our code will require a traffic impact analysis for subdivisions that meet certain thresholds, but they are not required as part of zoning approval. And that is very typical as well in other communities, because generally when a future land use map is created, it's taking into account potential densities and everything else for various areas when specific intensities of uses are applied to that future land use map. So they're all kind of connected. And the question came up around the housing study. I just wanted to stipulate that the 1,100 units that is in the Chaffee County Housing Needs Assessment is referencing workforce units. It's not specific as whether or not those are deed restricted and affordable, but it is specifically meant countywide for workforce. That's what the need speaks to. Any subdivision or planned development that would come forward on this property would, at very minimum, need to meet the inclusionary housing requirements of the city, of which 1 out of 6 of the units would need to be deed restricted affordable. To the comment that affordable housing is going to folks that are outside of the community, that is absolutely false, because deed restricted units are exactly that. They must meet eligibility requirements, of which they must live or work here in the county a certain number of hours. For a Chaffee County employer, they must meet income eligibility requirements as well. No restricted units that have been created through inclusionary housing have been sold to anyone who does not meet those eligibility criteria at this point.
And Bill, if I could add, they're deed restricted in perpetuity, so they cannot do what one of the comments said, and that is, sell for $200,000 and then
Correct.
In 5 years. None
of those deed restricted properties can just, go one time affordable and then the next time go back to the market value. It is deed restricted in perpetuity. Unlike market based homes that certainly could be sold at a lower rate, but then that purchaser may turn around and sell it for 100% more. And we have certainly seen that in this community even over the last 5-6 years. But those are very different from inclusionary housing units. I just wanted to be very clear about that. Just one last thing, because I think there was a mention of R2 changing as far as the intent and dimensional standards and everything else. I just wanted to read from the previous land use code as far as R2 medium density residential zone district is to provide for residential neighborhoods comprised of detached single-family dwellings, duplex dwellings, and multifamily residences on smaller lots than are permitted in single-family R1 zone district, allowing for slightly greater overall densities, which is pretty much exactly the same thing that the new land use code states. There have been very few changes to the dimensional standards of R2, a couple little tweaks here and there. The overall densities, overall lot sizes have remained the same. The bigger change was in R3. Without question, there were a lot of changes to R3, a couple changes to R1, but I just wanted to clarify that for the board. I can take any other questions you might have, though.
What do you guys think?
Just an aside, the Chaffee Housing Authority has a housing tracker, so you can look and see how many units are recommended from the 2022 housing needs assessment by category of income restriction and by rental and ownership. You can see what it recommends. You can see how many are planned, how many are in construction, and how many are built. So I think that's a helpful
that's great.
tool for somebody asked about that. And then when we look at an actual development, you can see what's needed in the different categories.
Commissioner Bush has his hand raised again.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I think this question might be back to Bill again. Someone mentioned city services being overstretched, and I think one of the letters we got beforehand was kind of talking about green space and that kind of thing. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, Bill, that in the development plan review process, that gets considered, do we have enough connected green space or enough traffic, lanes, like all that kind of stuff. That's explicitly not part of the rezoning.
Correct, that is not, but those are things that would be considered once we see a proposed development plan.
And
Thank you.
I would also add that, since we only have a concept of a plan, it would be impossible to do a traffic study on something that isn't solid yet. So we have to wait for the development plan before any of that can take place. So, cart before the horse.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
You were talking about the purview of what you can do tonight, right? Can I ask a question, or are you just talking to each other?
We are just having discussion amongst ourselves at this point.
But you are going to accept some comments later then, right?
Well, no comment. I closed comments, so we're not accepting comments at this time. We're just going to discuss it amongst ourselves. And then you will have, obviously, whatever happens, there'll be an opportunity at City Council. Yeah. Kenny?
Anybody?
I don't have a lot of additional comments. I mean, I can, I would vote to support the staff recommendation, surrounding R2. I think, it's encouraging to see the developer even produce a plan like this to kind of show us a concept. It's not what like we've mentioned multiple times, it's not the scope of what we're approving tonight. I think from a big picture, I'm looking at R2 or R3. Obviously, R3 was brought back to the drawing board, and, R2 seems very congruent with the rest of the surrounding areas, in my opinion. And, I appreciate a lot of the items that were laid out, kind of reflecting the land use code and the work that's been gone into that over the years. I mean, we're talking 10, 15 years of even our land use code has took 5 years. I mean, it's not like thought and intention hasn't been put into it. And so, I mean, I feel good about R2. I think it represents the needs of the community. I think, on a whole, so, yeah.
Well, from my understanding, like, our land use code is basically like an agreement with the community for how we're gonna plan and what we're gonna approve moving forward. Am I right? So like, we kind of,
That and the FLOM as well, kind of, yeah.
so we kind of have to follow it. Like, I mean, I want to make the neighbors happy and give them what they want, but they're not the only ones who weighed in on that land use code. And so we kind of have to stick to the plan, right? I mean, even if they don't like it.
That's what a lot of thought and energy has gone into that plan. Can we bring that up? That zoning map that you had before, or the FLOM? Yeah.
Salty, do you essentially mean R2 or R3, like it's shown on the map here? Like those are our choices?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I think we have to stick to the process and stick to what's within our right to do and what's in our guidance to do. And if it gets another referendum, it gets another referendum, but we kind of have an agreement with the whole community and everyone to follow this plan, right? I mean, that's how I see it, kind of.
You can certainly see it that way, yes. Yep.
Sarah, you have any thoughts?
I think, this is a situation where I think Salty makes a good point. Like, there are always trade-offs in any decision, any development, and our job is to apply the legal framework and the values that we've agreed upon that are reflected in our various documents, our land use code, our future land use map, and doing it in a way that is objective. And that doesn't mean that we can't figure out how we can make the process better. It doesn't mean we can't work with the developer to truly make it a property that is better for the neighborhood. Like, all those things are on the table. But I think the decision tonight, I'm pretty compelled, honestly, by some of this might have been a small detail, but this really stuck out to me, like the unit per acre ratios. I think, like, the first thing I saw when I saw that concept was, I wonder what the math is of, like, is this actually more dense, that much more dense than the surrounding neighborhood? So I appreciated the applicant answering that, because I think it's one thing to think, like, in theory, like, feel like you have a vision of boxy, ugly apartments, and that's totally fair, and I understand that fear, but it's another to really think, like, okay, the data says that it's actually fairly comparable from a density standpoint, which is sort of what we're talking about tonight. From a design standpoint, like, couldn't agree more with what everybody said. Nobody wants boxy pieces of crap in our neighborhood. I certainly don't. And I believe that those decisions to make sure that that is not what's built are to come. And I have faith and confidence in the commission and the council to make those decisions in a thoughtful and smart way in the future.
Aaron, you got anything?
I sympathize with the concerns. If I lived there for, years and decades and had nothing to the neighboring property, and now all of a sudden there's a road going through, it's sort of like any amount of traffic is too much traffic. So I can appreciate the concerns with changes in that neighborhood. I think there's a pretty compelling case to not zone it R1. I think we're responsible for, like Salty said, that this is one of the last areas of the city, and putting it really low density doesn't seem responsible. That said, I think we had a good conversation about R3, and it seems like that's too far. But it seems to me that also the density is capped in the annexation agreement, so that sets a maximum amount that can be built kind of regardless of what we zone it. And then what's left are the dimensional standards, and I appreciated seeing the dimensional standards for the other neighborhoods where it seems like the R2 gives more flexibility to do the design that might make it a more compatible neighborhood design-wise with the surrounding neighborhoods. So, like Kenny said, I'm inclined to support the R2 zoning, and then note that all the pieces about the traffic and how that outlines and what the units are is in a process that's yet to come.
Yeah, I agree. with that, I think that, we want to zone this in a way that meets the zoning of the adjacent properties, the R2. There's been a lot of comments about the Angel View, the boxy things. I've been on this commission long enough to remember when that development came through and when that development came through council. It didn't look anything like the boxy things you see today. It was beautiful. It went to council, and because the developer at the time did not want to concede an additional 3 affordable units, he took his toys, packed up his tools, and walked away. Now, the Angel View property that's adjacent, that's being developed now, the plans for that are really nice. And I think that at some point, we're not here to criticize or evaluate the developer's reputation or his past behavior, their past behavior, but I have to say at some point, having sat here for nearly 9 years, I can say that this is the most I have ever seen any developer come to us to try to make something work. And the original try was 72 units with R3. Obviously, that wasn't acceptable. So we're back to the drawing board with the zoning, but we've still capped the neighborhood at 96 units. That is a cap in the annexation. No matter who buys that property or develops it, it cannot go more than 96 units. R2, we have not zoned anything as a city R1 since what, Bill, the 1950s?
Probably.
Right? Yeah. So R2 is the responsible, practical, obvious thing to do, in my opinion. And Mr. Chairman, if there's no other comments, I'd like to make a motion.
Could I just make one clarification? Yep. The loophole, if you will, that the developer utilized there at Angel View to walk away and build what he built no longer exists.
Exactly.
That was fixed with this new land use code and even a little bit prior. So.
But I'll also say that we all hopefully learn from our past mistakes. And what I've seen in this chamber, the last time we were here and this time, is a developer trying, whether or not he's succeeding, trying to take into consideration some of the concerns of the neighbors. And I think that all needs to be, we all need to take a breath and figure out how we can work together as community members and citizens and neighbors to find the best alternative for this. It's going to be developed. It's just a matter of how much input, you get a little bit more with honey than anything. So I would urge the public to try really hard to put a good foot forward and a little trust and hope that it's returned. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I move to recommend City Council approve the zoning of the 5H LLC subject property to R2 medium density residential as it meets the applicable review standards.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve recommendation to City Council for the R2 zoning. Any further discussion?
Follet,
Yes.
Bomer,
Yes.
Derwingson,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Layton,
Yes.
Walsh. Yes. Briggs,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay.
I want to thank everyone for being here and for your comments, and I hope you'll take them forward and have a wonderful development plan in this neighborhood. No, we're volunteers. Thank you, Doctor.
All right, we'll give it just a minute for the shuffle.
That's the Dr. Wool, the cardiologist.
All right.
Ben's cardiologist.
If you guys are going to have discussions, please have them outside. We got a little bit more to do here. All right, on to code text amendment to implement state requirements related to the prohibition of non-functional turf, artificial turf, and invasive plant species under Senate Bill 24-005.
Yep, we have Michael Farrington from Wilson Williams online, and he's going to be the one presenting this.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you so much for your time. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to run through this at the top level. This aligns us with kind of the state law on this. We're just a little bit behind. In 2024, the state passed a bill, Senate Bill 24005. It limits what we can do for non-functional turf, asks us to ban fake turf, and asks us to narrow on invasive weed species. We already do that on invasive weed species in our code, so this just kind of gets us caught up and aligned with the state on the other areas. So this ordinance targets kind of an update to Salida's landscaping code within the new land use code, and limits the use of non-functional turf. I'm going to get into what non-functional turf here is in a second, but here it's pretty straightforward. We're aligning the code with the state requirements to keep existing landscaping rules and to minimize that while still getting us updated. So the state does require us to update that. Beginning on January 1st of this year, actually, we already had that requirement. We're just updating the code to reflect it so it's easier on our development partners to know what actually is required of them. State law prohibits the installation of non-functional and artificial turf on certain kinds of property. It applies to new development and certain redevelopment projects, which the statute calls applicable property, but essentially comes down to uses that are commercial, institutional, that's city-owned property, industrial, common interest, that's HOA property, and public right-of-way. Residential property, so single-family homes and and small apartment complexes, duplexes, would be exempt. So they're not really impacted. The only group that's likely impacted is HOA land in terms of residential land. This ordinance does three main things. It adds a clear non-functional turf section to make it really clear what is and is not allowed. Non-functional turf is really just, it's turf that does not serve a purpose other than to have the space covered in grass. If it's being used for activity, if it's being used for sports, or even as an aesthetic, it's allowed. It's really just to prevent us putting a giant landscaped lawn in front of a bank that nobody's going to go on. The state wants to avoid water waste. We already had a pretty good xeriscaping section, so this kind of just emphasizes it. Second, it clarifies that when that redevelopment triggers, that was something we spoke with staff about. Redevelopment will only really trigger this if they have to do a full a full landscaping code application. So it's pretty limited in terms of redevelopment. It's really going to look like a full project redevelopment rather than a renovation. Finally, it cleans up that applicability language, makes it clear when you're going to have to do that and when you won't. It's pretty rare. It's only in major developments. For example, this project would be prohibited from non-functional turf around in an HOA space. None of the turf in the site plan we saw tonight would fall into that. What this does not do, it does not require the removal of existing non-functional turf if we have any. It does not apply to any residential property, single family especially, and it doesn't change our existing landscaping percentages, trees, anything like that. It really only touches that landscaping when it comes to artificial turf and non-functional turf. It doesn't really expand any of our public policy things here. It really just aligns us with state law on this. The biggest emphasis is that it does not apply to single family homes or small low density housing, and it does not apply retroactively at all. From an administrative standpoint, this is going to slide in right at the same point as the landscaping code and review as it is now. So no big changes there. And finally, this will just align us with state law. It should make it clearer to applicants and staff where things are, what the expectations are, stuff like that. I'm happy to kind of take any questions if anyone has any. It's a little bit of a longer ordinance just because we wanted to define things within the ordinance rather than referring back to state law. We tend to find that's a little bit easier to read, and we didn't want to mash up that beautiful land use code we just passed in December. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to kind of take them and answer them on this.
I just want to compliment you on how fast you speak.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I speak quick, but I'm nervous.
It's impressive.
I think in the future, Michael, it would be good to slow it down a bit. Particularly being online, we were having a little trouble following. My understanding is that residential, single-family homes and residential homes are exempt from this.
That's correct.
And
Single-family
by turf,
homes
you mean grass?
Yeah, and so that's exactly
also,
it. Turf is just grass.
And also artificial turf?
Artificial turf is now, it's limited in a few more spaces. The goal here was to prevent banning kind of non-functional big grass areas. The goal of banning it is just so that potentially a developer looking at that doesn't replace that non-functional turf with artificial turf. We already have pretty strict limits on where artificial turf can be used, and we stuck with those in the new code.
And I think the purpose of this is to save water, is that right?
That's the stated purpose of the state legislature. That's correct.
And I'm guessing that most of so it sounds like the state legislature came down and then every local municipality is required to adopt language so that development adheres to that state legislature. So I'm guessing if I'm following, this language is probably pretty standard that most municipalities are adopting.
I have written this for 6 municipalities now. Yes, it's pretty standard. Salida specifically, since we have a nice updated code, it was pretty easy to slide it in there. But yeah, pretty standard.
All right. So we do need to...
See if there's any public.
Is there public here to speak to this?
There's nobody on
Is there anybody signed up?
No one has their hand
Nobody
up
online?
Okay, I'll go ahead and close that.
All right.
Go ahead.
Ready for motion?
Discussion or motion? Yeah.
Make a motion.
Just, it's the, for those of us that are water nerds. It's the driest year
It is.
on record.
Yeah.
Snowpack, ever, since it's
Bar
been
none,
measured.
Since we've been keeping record,
Right.
it is the driest year. This is
Right.
a small and very responsible
25.
thing we can
Right.
do.
2025 was? Or
This
so
year that
far,
we're in right
So
now.
far,
Yeah.
this winter.
okay,
The worst snowpack on record since they've been measuring it, right, Aaron? Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll get big snow in February, March, and April and May, but,
Sort of the
And it's
damage
fun
is
to
already
think about all
done.
the
I know.
municipal efficiencies, but they
Right.
say about half of your residential use goes
Right.
to outdoor landscaping.
Right.
Yeah,
A big portion is
Right.
this that nobody walks on except to mow it.
not to mention the Colorado River. So,
So
on that note, I make a motion to recommend that City Council approve the attached ordinance updating Section 16-4-80 of the Salida Land Use Code to comply with Senate Bill 24-005 related to non-functional turf, artificial turf, and invasive plant species.
second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the code text amendment. Any further discussion?
All right, Fulay,
Yes.
Bomer,
Yes.
Derwingson,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Layton,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Riggs,
Yes.
motion passes.
Sort of on that note, we were talking, I know the county has adopted and approved gray water use, and it was going to you guys, or have you guys had have had those discussions?
Yep, it was actually adopted just at the last council meeting.
Okay.
As well.
Great.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah, and if things continue down this path, we'll probably see some more information come out about water saving methods and maybe even some, who knows, maybe some restrictions on it. Hopefully, we don't have to get to that point. Hopefully, we'll see a lot more snow here in the next couple of months.
Hopefully.
Do your snow dance.
Right? Woo-hoo.
Washed my car, I did my part.
I know you're doing your part. You're doing your part.
Watch your car with snow, right? With you.
Right, right.
Okay. So the next time that this group or members of this group will get together, hopefully will be at the work session, city council work session on February 2nd.
1 week from tonight.
Week from tonight. Right? Is that right?
Yes.
I sometimes forget what day it is. But yes, anyways, we'll be going over the community development's role and functions that you may not know that we have and that we do with this massive team that we have. And then we'll be talking about short-term rental caps as we talked about last time. So opportunity to listen in on city council and how they take the recommendations you all gave them at the last meeting.
That's at 6, right, Bill?
Yes, 6 o'clock. And then the next regular meeting that we have scheduled is February 23rd. We already do have a couple of items on that particular agenda. Look to Kristen, see if there's anything else worth mentioning before, we do anticipate making a hire quite soon for the senior planner position. We did interviews last week and hope to have something out there this week, if possible. And so we're really looking forward to that one getting resolved. And then lastly, I would love to see if we could maybe take a picture together that we might send to GIF. I think I may have his email, his
I
personal
do.
email.
I have his text too.
I've been a little bit remiss in thinking too much about it. We maybe can come up with something, a good idea of something to send his way, because we never really got a chance to give him a farewell after all the years of his service. So I'd love to do something like that. And if anybody has some good ideas that we can send along with the picture or in addition to that, I'm all ears.
A Patriot Super Bowl.
If we could order that up, I'm sure he would very much appreciate it.
Signed copy of the new land use code.
Yeah. Good idea.
There we go.
I'm sure he'll read it.
We can at least send him the link.
Oh, right. Or the PF, or the PDF version.
Yeah, that could be kind of fun,
300 and
actually.
how many pages?
I'm sure he'd get a kick out of it
Oh, he
anyways.
would.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else to
One
mention.
question though, do we have I know we've been doing interviews and the council will approve whatever we do. Do we have a quorum for the 23rd? Because I know I think Aaron and Kenny are.
I have just heard from two
Dan
folks that are going to be unavailable, Kenny and Aaron.
And Aaron, right.
Yeah.
Dan, are you available on the 23rd?
It's council.
Yes, I should be.
Great.
I'm available.
And
yeah.
you guys, okay, good. Then we have a quorum.
Should-
Okay.
Yeah. And for those of you unaware, we are in the midst of doing interviews for the open planning commission seats right now. So we do hope to have a recommendation that will go to council for appointments in mid-February. So for those two seats. So there we go. Great. That's all we got. And otherwise, just let's take a picture when you're all done.
I move to adjourn.
All right,
Second.
motion is second.
Yay.
All
those
in favor? Aye. All right.
Aye.
And I want to say how nice it is to see the smiles going on in the gallery back there.
Everybody, thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
February 7th meeting.
February 2nd.
Second, is that open to public?
Yes.
Six? On the second. Okay.